Pretty spiritual.
Hi, I'm Shay.
And I'm Amy.
And welcome back to another episode of Pretty Spiritual. So last week we were talking about things that we're unlearning in our 30s, and the content was so juicy, so good that we decided to go into a part 2 for this week because we had so much to say.
Yeah, it felt like an episode that just kept giving, and we felt like we had so much more to say on it. So for anyone that hasn't listened to part 1, I feel like go back and listen to part 1 first and then come back and listen to part 2.
Off you go. Back to part 1. So last week we were talking a lot about relationships and kind of timelines of our lives and what we expected our life to kind of pan out like. So this week we're going to pick up with belief systems. So Amy, what is one belief system you think you had and how's that changed now?
Yeah, so I think when I was in my 20s, I thought that success was very much tied to career, and I also thought that kind of, I suppose, self-worth in a way was also tied to success, which was then tied to career. So it was almost like, in my mind, I thought that I needed to have a really successful career in order to I suppose feel worthy and feel like
Validated.
Validated and like I'd achieved something. But reflecting on that in my 30s, I feel like that was just so wrong, so inaccurate. And my belief system has completely changed around that now. I feel like there are so many different ways that you can be successful. And for me, the most important thing is being happy, being healthy, feeling at peace in my life, and all of those things, to me, that's what success now looks like. But that's not how I used to see it at all.
No, I completely agree. I had a very similar belief, and it was always trying to climb that corporate ladder, go for the next title, and work my way up. And then literally as I turned 30, I had this sudden realization, I'd say 31, that my whole life didn't revolve around that, and I wasn't validated based on that. And it was only when I got to a certain job that I'm still doing, and there was nowhere else for me to go up, and that would have deflated me. I'd be looking for the next thing, like, oh my gosh, I can't climb up any higher, I'm stuck. But something switched in me, and I'm still doing that same job a few years later. I've turned off the need to constantly improve. I still have drive and I still want to succeed in my job, and I just don't hold the heaviness that it used to have anymore. And it turns out I'm actually more successful than I was a few years ago in this same job, and I'm doing better and better each year, but without the pressure of that I was putting on myself to feel validated, if that makes sense. Like, if I had a bad month with work, and I mean, I work in sales, so I'm judged on what I do. So if I had a bad month, oh my gosh, it would literally like eat me alive. I'd feel so down in the dumps. I would not do like well in life outside of work because I'd feel really miffed about it, and it would take a lot for me to let it go. And then now I'm like, okay, on to the next month. But I have a lot less bad months since I let go of that belief that I needed to strive to be a certain way.
It's almost like you were pouring 100% of your energy into that. And I suppose when you're doing that, you expect this like constant return, this constant validation. And I think when you realise that actually there are other things that I can pour my energy into that give back to me in other ways. I think it does just change your mindset a little bit, doesn't it?
It does. That pressure, don't get me wrong, there's still that drive and a tiny bit of pressure, like I want to do well every single month, obviously, naturally, because it's tied to monetary value, and, you know, makes the world work and means that I can do things I want to be doing. But yeah, I think when I took that pressure away, it seemed to just flow more naturally. And I'm so much happier because I'm putting, like you said, energy into other areas of my life as well.
Yeah, definitely. It doesn't have to all just be about your career. And I think a lot of people realise that in their 30s.
Yeah.
I do think it's something that happens to a lot of people, and we start realising that actually our work doesn't have to be our whole identity, and we don't have to centre our lives around work. And I think in our 20s, you know, I think it's important to be like kind to like our former selves. I think in your 20s you're figuring out who you are and what you want, and I think society tells us to kind of get into a job and progress a career.
100%. We're conditioned from such a young age. Like you, I started work really early. So you're conditioned, you're looking up to people, and you want to strive to be at that level, don't you?
Definitely. And I suppose from a generational point of view, I feel like people of our generation are, I think, disruptors in the sense of like we're challenging the societal norms, and we're happy to, I suppose, speak out about what we believe in and challenge things that we don't agree in. But like when we were kind of, I suppose, first starting in the workplace, all of the kind of like it felt like all of the generations before you, or the majority of the generations before you, the way that they became successful was to climb the corporate ladder and to have a good career. For me personally, there were kind of very few examples of people that were maybe entrepreneurs or people that decided to choose to travel the world instead of have a traditional life that society would have said we should have. You know, it was almost like there wasn't very many examples of that, so you just sort of follow suit.
You toe the line, and you just go the path that's been laid out for you. Whereas I completely agree, like our generation of people in their 30s now are there to challenge and disrupt and change the way things are. And it's funny because now that I've just had this brainwave and I'm thinking back to like my first few jobs, most of the people in those jobs that I was looking up to have retired now. Crazy. And then people that are in senior leadership, there's still that middle generation of people that have still towed that same line, and less of disruptors than what we are. But yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see where our generation of people are when they reach those levels, because naturally people are going to start coming up through the ranks, or like they're going to own companies and change the way that the whole corporate world works.
Definitely. I completely agree. I think more people than ever now have got that like entrepreneurial spirit where they're thinking, do you know what? There's nothing stopping me from setting up a side hustle, setting up my own business, putting my energy into something that I genuinely care about and genuinely believe in. And I think that's another thing that I have kind of learned. So I feel like as a person, my morals and my values have not really changed. I feel like I've always had the same set of morals and values, and that's kind of part of who I am. But I feel like in my 30s, or rather in my 20s, there were probably, you don't necessarily have the confidence maybe to like challenge behaviours, to challenge things that kind of go outside of those values, especially in the workplace. You know, in the workplace, you're a bit like I suppose you tolerate things that maybe you don't want to tolerate, but you don't know anything else. Whereas I think when you get to your 30s,
you don't stand for it.
You don't stand for it. You're more, and it's not even about, you know, like being kind of arrogant or anything. It's more just about having that sense of confidence and having that stronger sense of self of like, this is who I am. These are what my morals and values are, and I'm not gonna tolerate being kind of disrespected, or I'm not going to work for somebody that doesn't share those same morals and values, because ultimately that's who I am, and that's going to cost me my peace, and I'm not prepared to do that.
I completely agree. And I think, like you, my morals and values have come to the forefront in the last few years, whereas before they were kind of like snuffed a bit and I would just be towing the line. And I'm one of those people that was known as the disruptor. Like I was just disruptive. I had too much to say, nobody cared. And then now I'm still that person, but people actually care about what I have to say.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. I can actually pinpoint when that shift started to happen.
When was that?
Literally in the last couple of years.
Really?
And it's like I've always done well, but in my role, like, and I absolutely love what I do, and I enjoy what I do. But yeah, I definitely saw a shift, and I think that goes in turn with management changing as well, because you have, like we said, people coming up through those ranks that are more of like the disruptors. It's really interesting to kind of reflect on, especially now that we're having this conversation. So
Definitely.
yeah,
very exciting times.
exciting times. I cannot wait to see what corporate world looks like with people like us in charge.
So you just mentioned kind of speaking out for what you believe in and being kind of challenging in some ways. And with that comes people's judgment and opinions from others. And sometimes that can result in people forming negative opinions about you.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that now in your 30s?
So there was a time where I would literally have conversations with myself in my head about people and their thoughts about me, and they may not have like said anything, but it would be an energy I pick up on. And this links in with my ADHD, and it's called rejection, something dysphoria. I can't remember the terminology for it. And it's the fear of being rejected. And I felt that so deeply, especially in work, especially in social situations. I would say if we were out having like drinks and there was a group of us, if someone on there just like didn't conversate with me in a certain way, or didn't not pay me attention, but the reaction to say something that I'd said was like a bit iffy, or it would put me on a back foot, and I would literally sit with that there and then, and it could ruin my whole mood and like night, and then I'd think about it afterwards. And that was the same like kind of in work and again family situations. And I felt it so deeply, it would literally ruin a weekend. And I don't remember the pinnacle moment of when that changed. It was definitely, I would say 29, 30, I think after I had my son. In fact, yes, I do know when it happened. It was when I had my son, and he was obviously very unwell. And I realised there was so much more that I had to care about than that. And then I also had this kind of brainwave, I think, of, do you know what? Just because people don't agree with what I have to say, or don't like what I have to say, or don't want to hear it, doesn't mean that it's not worth saying. So just because someone doesn't want me to say it doesn't mean I shouldn't say it. I'm responsible for myself. I'm allowed to be heard. Whether it lands or not is another thing. But then I think when I started embracing that I'm allowed to be heard, I'm allowed to say what I want, it doesn't matter how I come across, and that people's opinions don't matter. I mean, yes, some people's opinions do matter, and I don't want to hurt anyone intentionally. I'm not saying just go out there and be a complete tornado and don't care about the destruction you've left behind you. And I've been that person as well. But the minute that I stopped letting it impact me deeply, and I could actually reflect on a conversation, be like, do you know what? I'm fine with what I've said. I'm fine with how I've come across. It doesn't matter to me. Yeah, huge change.
I think what you've just described is almost like stepping into your authenticity.
Yes.
It's not really about the other people, and it's not really about not being liked by others. It's more about, I know who I am, and I'm going to be authentic to me, and I'm going to speak my truth, and there might be people that disagree with me, but that's okay. And I think that is such a powerful thing.
Yeah.
I think that's so powerful to do that. And I also think that when you know, we've talked a lot in other episodes about our healing journeys. I think when you go on this healing journey and you get that stronger sense of self, you do become less concerned with seeking validation from others. Of course, we all like to be liked. You know, people like to feel like other people like you.
It's a dopamine hit, isn't it? Almost.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
It's human nature. But actually, if you're being your true self and saying what you truly think, and you're doing it from a place of like speaking what's on your heart, what's on your mind, rather than trying to, you know, say things for the sake of it, you're just honouring who you are. And I think more people should do that. And I also think that when you do that, you attract the people that are meant to be in your life around you because you're being yourself. You're not masking. You're not saying things just because you think that's what the other person wants to hear.
You've just said exactly what I was going to follow on saying. You finish speaking, and one like a scenario just popped into my head as well. So yeah, you start attracting people that aren't going to judge you, aren't going to make you feel a certain way, and I think that is another big pinnacle moment for me. I started surrounding myself with people that weren't making me feel less of. So there would be time like when I'd have a drink, I'd get like the fear afterwards, like, oh my gosh, because having
anxiety. We've all had anxiety.
Yeah, and I used to feel that so deeply, like it would take over my weekend. Because anybody that has ADHD and has a drink knows that when you have a drink, your mind goes quiet, suddenly you start being yourself, and some people don't like that. And I would be so embarrassed. And then I was thinking about, okay, in contrast, when we went to see Lana Del Rey, we obviously had a few drinks.
We had a few.
And we were with my sister and her friend who we didn't know very well. We'd never met. And we ended up picking up some random people as well on the way.
Girls. Just friends. just to clarify.
Yeah. If our partners are listening. Your husband's editing this.
I know, he's going to be like, sorry, what?
No, but and that you remember, if I was around girls who I didn't know, my anxiety would be so high because I would try like shrink myself because I didn't want to come across and then think, oh gosh, this person's this. Anyway, it was hilarious. We'd had a few drinks. There was hot dogs flying. and we woke up in the next morning hungover, obviously. I remember us waking up like...
It was funny.
And we were like... And we just started laughing about all of the things. And that contrast for how I would have felt if I'd have done that a few years ago. And be like, oh my gosh, I was running through the street with chips like balanced on my fingertips and a hot dog went flying. Some random girls saw me throw a sausage out the window. Like, I'm so embarrassed. And I would have felt like that.
Yeah.
But I just did not care. And we laugh about that so much. We laugh about like the text messages you sent your husband. You were like, oh gosh. And you like, obviously your husband isn't going to judge you in that way.
No, but he's not. He's used to us by now.
Yeah, and I looked at texts I'd sent friends, like work friends and stuff like that. They're like, are you having a great time? And I was like, blah, blah, blah. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, absolutely horrific text messages make no sense. I'd text my mother-in-law. I'd text like so many people, random stuff. Because it was such a euphoric time, wasn't it?
It was great.
And I would have been like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. I'm so sorry. I was so drunk last night. I didn't have to send those text messages because I did not care. I was having a great time and like we put stories up and we were not getting the words right because we were too far gone. Like, and so many people were probably like, oh, they were like, they've gone to a Lana Del Rey concert. They don't even know the words. Actually, we do know the words. We were just too that would have I'd be like, oh, I need to delete that story. It's so embarrassing. I look like I don't know the words. People are going to think I'm just some fake Lana fan. But I was like, I actually don't care.
No, don't care.
But then I think my sister-in-law messaged me. She was like, I could tell you're drunk because you always get words wrong to song when you're like drunk. And I'm like, yeah, that's me. At least people know me for who I am. I'm not bothered. So that was just a really long-winded way to say that we had a really good time at Lana Del Rey. We're really drunk. But it's the change of mindset of...
Yeah.
If that was a few years ago, how I would have felt
reacted.
After that.
That's growth, isn't it? That's great.
Do you think I'm a weirdo?
No. I think it's a bit too late for that. You think now, after that point, I'm going to decide that you're a weirdo?
I don't know what you were thinking.
Funny.
But yeah, we had a great time. But
it was good.
It's great to see the growth on how those kind of situations. We got a bit messy, we got a bit embarrassing and acted a bit immaturely for 32-year-old women. But we had a great time.
We did. And I think, something else that I think about is going back to like being our authentic selves and being who we truly are. That doesn't have to always, I think sometimes we think that if we say something, if we share an opinion, if we're our true self, then the result of that is that people that don't agree with us are gonna not like us. Mm-hmm. You can disagree with somebody and still like them. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Just because you have a different opinion on something, or because you have a different belief about something, or because you don't agree with everything, like that's what makes us uniquely us. And you're never going to find anybody that agrees with you 100% of the time. So I think that's the other thing, like for me in my 30s, is I can speak my truth, and I don't automatically think, that by saying that it's going to result in some like massive people being like, we don't like it. Do you know what I mean? I think sometimes in your teens, probably more so, and a bit into your 20s, you tend to dramatise a bit.
You do.
You tend to dramatise in your head like how other people are going to react. But really, most people are so focused on themselves that they don't actually care. They actually don't care.
I think what you've just said there as well has just triggered another thing that I used to do in terms of beliefs, and it kind of links in, but I used to avoid that situation of people when I was younger saying, I don't agree, because confrontation would set me off. I used to mirror people, and I'd just go along with things, and I'd just agree with things that necessarily were against my morals, because I was in so much fear of being rejected or like confronted, and that stopped for me. And it was such a powerful thing when I realized I stand in my own beliefs and morals, and I don't really care if nobody else does, because that's me. Obviously I do care, and I don't want, again, intentionally upset people, but I think if you can stand firm on it, it's such a powerful thing.
Yeah, definitely. I can relate to the mirror thing as well. I think, again, going back to working in corporate, which I no longer work in, I think I've mentioned that in previous episodes, I definitely used to do that at the start of my corporate career, and I didn't see it as that at the time, but it was like I would be able to tell immediately, like in a room, who was successful, who was the decision maker, and what people almost like had that, what's the word that I'm looking for? Almost power, like aura, influence almost. The people in the room that had influence, people that were successful, people that were doing well. And I suppose we all learn from others in some way, but I would almost like take things that they would do that had been successful, and then do that. Like replicate it, like mirror it. And I don't mean like literally copy and like for like, but I suppose if I saw them presenting something in a certain way, handling a situation in a certain way, and I thought, that was impressive and that worked, I would almost like be like, okay, that's in the back pocket, I'll do that later. And I'm sure a lot of people probably do that in their corporate careers. I suppose it's taking parts of what you see as successful and kind of replicating that,
and moulding yourself into that.
But I think the problem, and I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that to some degree, like you look at what works and then you do that, but I think if it's like, if you don't have a strong sense of self, like where do you draw the line? And at what point have you just started mirroring all these successful people and forgetting?
Carbon copy of the corporate machine.
Yeah, I think I was that at one point. Yeah, definitely was.
I agree. Like you do naturally when you're younger and you're being influenced by others in let's say the workplace, but even in family life, in friendships and things like that, if someone has that more powerful aura about them, or influential aura, you do tend to start to mirror, like, I'll take a bit of that, I'll take a bit of that. You're inspired by it, and you want to succeed. And you're right, if you don't have that sense of self, you lose yourself very, very quickly, and you become just a carbon copy. And the most powerful thing for me definitely was when I had my sense of self, because I took all of those learnings, shaped myself, and then became better.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You can still learn from others and you can still be inspired by other people.
Definitely.
But it's definitely having that balance, isn't it, between like, oh, I really like, you know, how that person does that thing, and almost like incorporating it into you.
Yeah, don't leave yourself at the door.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's something that's really important.
So we've obviously just touched on this a little bit, but do you think confidence does come with age or experience? I like that question.
Do you know what? I actually think it comes with a bit of both.
Yeah,
so
it comes with the and.
Yeah, it actually comes with a bit of both. So I don't think that you automatically become confident at a certain age. But it's more of a time thing than an age thing. I think once you've gone through, we've talked about corporate, for example, once you've been in a job for a certain amount of time, or once you've done, you know, been on a healing journey for a certain amount of time, like I feel like that's when the confidence comes. It's more about like time and consistency and life experience as well. I think that is a huge thing actually, and I think that when, you know, somebody might go through something really traumatic in their teens or early 20s, and as a result of that thing be so much more self-aware, sure of who they are, you know, change their outlook on life, all of these different things, and that might happen at a really young age because of an experience that they've had.
So they've grown up a lot quicker.
Yeah, versus, you know, someone who maybe never goes through that experience, or somebody who goes through a similar experience in their 50s, and at that point that's when they have that like turning point. But I do think for a lot of people there is something in their life, some sort of experience that happens that then shapes them, and that's where the self-belief and confidence comes from.
I think you're bang on, because as you were talking I was like, okay, and I think about it, I mean, the level of confidence I had when I first started a job when I was younger is actually quite embarrassing. Like I was walking around with that much confidence is insane.
Really?
With no life experience. But anyway, but as I got over that and had different jobs and whatnot, I definitely think a traumatic experience changed me in that way. Like the way you've explained it is exactly how I would explain my journey. Yeah,
interesting.
The self-awareness. I want to look at the data on that.
There's got to be some, surely.
But when I think about me prior to maternity leave to me after maternity leave, and people that know me actually have said you're so different. And obviously I had that traumatic experience, so yeah.
Ooh. Of course you are. I think these events shape us, don't they?
Yeah.
And I think more importantly, I think the thing that triggers the confidence and the self-belief is that our outlook changes.
Yes.
And it puts things into perspective.
Yes. Things like health issues, loss, like stressful situations. You change how you fit into the mold a bit, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. It changes your outlook.
So what positive outcomes from unlearning things do you think that you have?
I think the biggest one for me is that I have a much deeper sense of peace. So I think a lot of my unlearnings have come from pressure, expectations, opinions of others, things that never really mattered, but I've had to unlearn that for myself. And I feel like from that, I've got this real deep sense of peace, and I know who I am. I'm still growing, I'm still learning, don't get me wrong. I'm still healing, I'm still doing all of those things, but I think the peace that comes with that, there's just no greater feeling. What about you?
I'd say similar, but I would also say the love, care and attention I give myself, because I was never putting myself first, whether it would be just thoughts, limiting beliefs in my head, conversations I was having with myself in my head, and perspective of my personality, things like that. I would say unlearning all of the things we've spoke about, and there's more obviously, and going through life experiences and knowing what I will accept and it's not the bare minimum and things like that. Having the ability to say no, putting boundaries and have that self-love, care and attention has been a massive one for me. Knowing I can give myself time if I need quiet is a big one, because I still am the type of person that just goes until they crash. But I've become very, very more present in how I'm feeling, and knowing that I'm going to head towards a crash. It's almost like I'm doing it even though I know it's going to happen now, rather than intentionally. So yeah, being able to say, like, give yourself an hour to do X, Y, Z. You need to take yourself out of this environment because it's not good for you. And that has changed the outlook and brought me peace.
Love that for you.
Yeah.
Oh, so much growth.
So much growth. But I'm still growing. There's still lots of things I need to work on, as ever. Well, as for everyone. As we say, you're not fully healed until you're dead, in my opinion. So, you know. But yeah. So what would you say to anybody listening that feels like they resonate with what we're talking about, feels like they're changing or they're starting to unlearn behaviours or patterns right now?
So firstly, I would say I think it's completely normal to get to your 30s, or any age really, and start challenging your beliefs and start unlearning things. And secondly, I would say you have to trust that. If you're starting to challenge things that you've believed or that you've done all of your life, there's obviously a reason for that. And if it's coming from your kind of gut instinct, your intuition, you need to trust that and you need to go with it. I think it is just as important to unlearn certain unhealthy habits as it is to learn new healthy habits. So I think go with it. And as you've heard us talk about, I think that just brings you closer to the version of you that you have always been, but that has maybe been hidden for a little while. So it will bring you that stronger sense of self.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think when people recognize that they're changing, it means that they're leveling up. They're getting closer to their higher self, and that's exactly what we want. And yes, it's not all kind of sunshine and rainbows. It can come with grief. It can come with bad kind of feelings and things like that. But yeah, I think having that awareness that you're leveling up is actually quite a powerful thing.
Definitely.
Instead of having to reflect and be like, oh, I've changed, which is great in itself. But knowing that that's happening is such an exciting thing.
It is, definitely. You are choosing the life for yourself, not letting other people choose it for you.
Yeah, you're aware you're on the journey.
Definitely.
Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Pretty Spiritual.
If you've enjoyed hanging out with us, then don't forget to like, subscribe and follow along on our platforms to be the first to receive any updates.
We hope to see you on Tuesday the 19th of May for another episode of Pretty Spiritual.
Pretty Spiritual!